It's like I got it. The 5th of June, Rabbi Levitt, Ezra.
Okay, welcome, Mayor.
Thank you so much. I also have noise in the background, but it's not my apartment.
Ah,
I don't know if it's too cumbersome. I guess I can shut down too, but
okay. We're ready to go. And let's see what we got up to. We got up to, we're in the next Parak Gimel, and we're up to Pasik Gimel. Oh, we read that long note. So now we've finished that note, and we're up to Pasik Gimel. V'yachinu. Lou, would you like to start? Oh, here comes Roy.
Okay, I'll start. Vayachinu ha-mizbeach al mechonosav ki be'ema alehem me'amei ha-aratsos vaya'alu alav olos lashem olos laboker v'la'arev. They established the altar on its foundations, for the fear of the peoples of the land was upon them. So they offered burnt offerings upon it to Hashem, burnt offerings for the morning and the evening. Okay, let's see. What do we have? We have three. They established the altar, so they offered. They established the altar in order to offer burnt offerings because they feared the peoples of the land. Rashi. There were two altars in the temple. One was the outer altar, which was used for burning the offerings and stood in the Azara, the main courtyard. The other was the inner altar, which was used for burning incense and placed in the temple building. The reference in our passage is to the outer altar, upon which the offerings were brought. See Rambam and Beis HaBechira. On its foundations, the sages assert that this altar was larger than the one used in the first temple. Reb Yossi said the altar was originally only 28 cubits by 28 cubits, which is pretty big. But when the exiles returned, they added 4 cubits to the south and 4 to the west. The Talmud explains that they were able to do so because the size of the altar within certain limits is not biblically fixed. The Talmud there adds, Rabba Barbar Chana said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, 3 prophets, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, according to Rashi, ascended with them from the exile. One testified as to the altar, i.e., its size, according to Rashi. One as to its place, i.e., its exact position in the temple courtyard, Rashi. And one to the law, that offerings may be brought at that site, even in the absence of the temple structure. The location of the altar is extremely precise, and it may never be varied. It is a universal tradition that the place upon which David and Shlomo built the altar is a spot where Abraham constructed the altar and bound Yitzchak from Genesis, Bereshit, where Noach built his altar when he went forth from the ark. This is the altar upon which Cain and Hevel presented their offerings. Here, Adam brought an offering when he was created, and it was from this soil that he was created. Man, the sages remarked, was fashioned from the soil of his eventual absolution. Rambam in Beis Habechira.
Okay.
I don't think Rambam used the word absolution.
Yeah, I think that's a translation.
I think the word that the Rambam used would be easier to understand. I don't know. What is this word?
Absolution. Um, I don't know, maybe teshuva, maybe kapora. I think maybe kapora.
His eventual absolution? The soil of his kapora?
It's forgiving someone for a wrongdoing or sin.
The soil of his absolution. What does soil have to do with forgiving somebody?
The only thing I can think of is that we return to the dirt. We return to the dust, and that's when we get the absolution. When we do the final kapara.
Oh, that's what he means. 1 second, that means that's where he was buried.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
Anyway, for fear
Anyway is right. Okay.
for the fear of the peoples of the land was upon them. They feared that the peoples of the land would interfere with their labors and slander them before the king. Hence, they sought immediately to establish visible evidence that they enjoyed royal favor. They quickly built the altar and brought offerings, hoping that these activities, which could have been accomplished only with the king's acquiescence, would deter their enemies. Rashi. Ibn Ezra differs, contending that the offerings were brought in order to invoke divine protection against the hostile peoples of the land whom the Jewish settlers feared. Malbim offers a third opinion, noting that the altar was built and the offerings were brought only after all the children of Israel had gathered in Jerusalem. Why were the offerings not reinstituted immediately upon the settlers' return to the Holy Land? Our verse provides the explanation. The delay was necessary because they feared the peoples of the land. They waited, therefore, until all the children of Israel had gathered in Jerusalem, in the hope that the strength of their numbers would discourage hostility. So they offered. The written form, kasiv, of this word differs from its pronunciation, kri. The written version is in the singular, ya'allah, vaya'al, and he offered up. The pronunciation is in the plural, vayala'u, and they offered up. Ibn Ezra explains that only one person, the Kohen Gadol, Yeshua, actually brought offerings, but he was assisted by a number of his fellow Kohanim. Since the offering was accomplished by an individual through group involvement, it is described with a word written in the singular and pronounced in the plural. Burnt offerings for the morning and the evening. This refers to the tamid, the daily offering brought each morning and afternoon. Rashi.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That is it for 3.
All right. So, okay. So they built. So that's interesting. So, in other words, you don't need to have the whole structure of the Beis Hamikdash intact in order to bring the korbanos. The Navi told them that the Mizbeach on which they bring the korbanos could be constructed and used, offerings brought at that site, even though you don't have it's not surrounded by a courtyard, it's not surrounded by walls. It was just a mizbeach out in the open. It seems like unguarded, unprotected, without the full structure of the Beis Hamikdash. But it was in the exact place, and in the exact place that it always had been. One testified to the altar as to its place, its exact position in the temple courtyard. And one to the law that the offerings may be brought even in the absence of a temple structure. That only makes two. Right? Okay. There were three Nevi'im, but only two of them gave any testimony. No. So one testified as to the altar, its size. Okay. Yeah. All three testified to something about the altar. One testified to the size, how big it has to be. One testified to the place, and the other one was the halacha that we said. Okay, very, very interesting. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. This was the same place where Noah, where Adam Rishon brought, where Noah, where Cain and Hevel, where Avram Avinu, and of course David and Shlomo. They knew, I guess, the Nevuah, Ruach HaKodesh, this was the place. The exact place. Fascinating. Okay.
It's interesting also because isn't this the same place that Yaakov had his dream?
In the he was yeah.
And he says, I didn't know.
He didn't know that he was there in that place.
Yeah, he didn't. He said, "This is the house of God," and I didn't know. So how did they know?
Well, the prophets, it was revealed to them in a nevuah.
Yeah, but not to Yaakov.
How did Avram know? I guess it was revealed to Avram too.
Yeah.
He must have had nevuah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and Hashem guided Abraham to the place.
Right, because he saw the cloud on the mountain.
Mm.
Well, that's interesting that you say that. That just shows that he knew which mountain.
Mm.
But the exact location of where the Mizbeach was, that's where exactly on that mountain.
Right.
Hashem said to Abraham, I will show you where to go, which I will point out to you. We say it every morning.
I know he said that by Lech Lecha. Hashem said, leave your home and I'll and you'll go to where I'll tell you to go. I don't know. Don't know if it's take a look in the it says it's in Bereshit 22:9. That's where the says that Avram constructed the altar and bound. I don't know what it says over there, whether it says that.
They arrived at the place of which God had spoken to him.
Okay. Okay.
That's a Kedat Yitzchak. Yeah.
Oh, that's 22:9.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rashi doesn't say anything.
Yeah. Okay. Um. Um. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. They don't. They just say it's a universal tradition that the place where David and Shlomo built the altar is the spot where Avram constructed the altar, and where Noach built the altar. And they don't quote a medrash, they don't quote a Gemara, they don't quote some other Chazal. I don't know. I would imagine that it's somewhere in the medrash. When David when um when David was running away from Sholem Melech, I think we learned this in Sefer Shmuel. It says that David um, he found refuge for one night with Shmuel Navi, and he learned with Shmuel Navi the whole night what a prime disciple couldn't learn in 70 years. And among the things that they learned was the location of the Mizbeach, so that David would know, even though David himself never built the Beis Hamikdash, but I guess he gave over what he learned from Shmuel Hanavi to his son Shlomo.
Makes sense.
There was we did learn something about that in Sefer Shmuel. Yeah, David even tried to. He even went ahead and started the work to arrange for the building of the Beis Hamikdash until Hashem told the Navi to go tell David that no, he shouldn't do that. Okay. So, wow. Wow, wow. So we see that this was the culmination of their aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. Looks like this was the first order of business on the agenda. When they, like the Malbim says, when they all finally assembled there, and they had a certain number, they went ahead with the building, with the construction, and the offering of korbanos. And they had the assistance in the direction of three prophets, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. The last three prophets in Klal Yisrael. Okay. Amazing. Very soon as well to be able to do that.
Right.
Okay, so that takes care of Pasuk Gimel. We got Pasuk Daled. Mayor.
Okay, let's see. Dalit says, Vayasu et Chag HaSukkot, HaKatuv va'olot yom b'yom b'mispar, b'mishpat devar yom b'yomo. They observed the festival of Sukkot, as is written, with the burnt offerings of each day in its day, according to the amount, according to the law of each day in its day.
Wow.
Yeah, well, there were specific offerings on each day of Sukkot.
Yeah, it comes to a calculation of Shivim Paros.
Oh, okay, yeah. I had the chart someplace. I don't remember where it
They
is.
start, you can do the math. It's, I think they started on the first day with 13. These are the ones that they brought on behalf of the Umas Olam, the 70 nations.
Ah,
So they started, they got 7 days of Sukkot. So it goes down from 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. The seventh day was 7. So I think that if that totals 70. Then of course they got the one par for Shmini Atzeres.
right.
That's for Klal Yisrael. So they brought all of these korbanos. Interesting. They single out the Yontiv of Sukkot to say. Didn't they mention something about they came up for in the 7th month, which was the month of the Yomim Noraim? We had a pasuk about that. Yeah, that's the beginning of this parak.
Oh,
Chodesh Hashvi, the 7th month arrived. That's the month of Tishrei, says Rashi. Sounds like they all went up and they made the altar and they brought the korbanos. Okay. That's the way to start off the year, huh?
yep. Okay.
So you got more to read, Mayor.
It says, Vayasu et Chag HaSukkot. Then they observed the festival of Sukkot by bringing the prescribed offerings of the festival. That's a mitzudot. Hakatuv, it's written. And he has the Pesukim in Numbers, Bar Midbar. Okay. Oh, here, 14 young sheep and 2 rams were offered daily during the 7-day festival. In addition, a total of 70 bulls were offered throughout the holiday, beginning with 13 on the first and decreasing each day by 1 until the 7th and final day when 7 bulls were offered. Okay. So from 13 down to 7.
Wow. So that's an addition to 14 young sheep and 2 rams that were offered daily
Right.
as part of the festival offering.
Yes. Okay. And then it says, Violot yom b'yom mispar, with the burnt offerings of each day in its day, according to the required amount. They celebrated the festival of Sukkot by bringing the number of burnt offerings specified each day. The leather vav, usually translated and, is not to be taken in its usual sense. Ah, okay.
So the offerings of the Yontif were offered with the 2 korban tamid
Mhm.
of the morning and the afternoon.
Right. And the last comment, B'mishpat devar yom b'yomo, according to the law, each day in its day. This is apparently a repetition of the previous phrase. It would seem that Rashi can see the verse in as referring to the 14 rams offered daily. The phrase, according to the law of each day, in its day, alludes to the 70 sacrificial bulls brought in descending order throughout the holiday.
Wow. Okay. Roy, Pasuk Hey, V'achri Kain.
Cain, Alais, Tomid Velecha Doshim, Ulechol Maadei Adashim, Hamakudoshim, Ulechol Misna Day, Nadavar Ladashim. And afterwards they offered the daily burnt offering, and for the new moon, and for all the appointed seasons of the Lord that were hallowed, and for everyone who was willingly offered a free will offering to the Lord.
L'kol misnadev nedava l'Hashem.
I've got here, and afterwards, and after Sukkot, they would offer up sacrifices every day for the morning and for the evening, says Rashi, and for the new moon, literally for the months and for the new moon. They would offer up sacrifices of the new moon. And for the appointed seasons of Hashem, for the rest of the appointed seasons of their sacrifices that were hallowed by the declaration of the tribunal, that is, by the declaration of the new moon by the Sanhedrin. And the final note, and for everyone who willingly offered. And that's for all those who willingly offer their free will offerings, the priest would accept them to sacrifice them, and from the first day of Tishrei, they commenced to offer up sacrifices, but the foundation of the temple was not yet built. Says Rashi, Midrash Ezra writes, but the construction of the temple had not yet commenced. That's all I've got.
Okay. Yeah, what else do we have to add to that? Yeah, there's the discussion about what the word V'acharei Kain is referring to. Afterwards, they brought the olos, like you brought from Rashi. Rashi says that that's referring to after the entire holiday of Sukkot. They resumed, or rather, I guess, continued to bring the korban morning and the afternoon. Korbanos are only brought during the day. But according to Rabbeinu Yeshaya Mitrani, he says that this Achrei Kain, it refers to the each day. In other words, after each day's offering of the festival offerings had been taken care of, after that, then they would bring the morning tamid. It wasn't offered first before them, all of them. And then the other offerings mentioned in the pasuk were also brought as well. And interestingly, the Malbim says over here, Rashi says that the offerings that were pertaining to the remaining festivals of Pesach and Shavuos, they were brought in their appropriate times. But the Malbim says that the Jewish settlers were able to offer the festival offerings only during the ensuing Pesach and Shavuos holidays. So they had that were brought on the altar. But after that, he says that the king's sanction was rescinded, and then the offering of korbanos was halted. Okay. All right. One more pasuk we got. Pasuk Vav. Back to Lou.
Yom Echad Lachodesh Hashvi'i Chelu L'Ha'alos Olos Hashem V'Heichal Hashem Lo Yutad. From the first day of the 7th month, they commenced offering burnt offerings to Hashem, but the foundation of the sanctuary of Hashem had not yet been laid. Let's see, the commentary says, they commenced offering burnt offerings to Hashem. On the first day of the 7th month, a sporadic beginning was made. After the festival of Sukkot, it was expanded into a full schedule, Mitzudas. But the foundation of the sanctuary of Hashem has not yet been laid. The altar was built and the offerings brought prior to the construction of the temple, despite the stringent biblical prohibition against bringing offerings outside the temple. This remarkable circumstance merits the extensive discussion in the rabbinic literature. The Talmud states that special testimony was needed to authorize the bringing of these offerings. One of the 3 prophets who returned with them from Babylonian exile testified that the offerings may be brought on the altar when it is on its original site, even in the absence of the temple structure. Zvachim. This has aroused periodic speculation among the later rabbinic authorities concerning the feasibility of bringing offerings in post-exilic and even contemporary times. For the detailed analysis of the same, see Kaftor Vaferach, Vets responds a Chasam Sofer, Yoredea, Binyan Zion. The justification for bringing offerings in the absence of the temple is expressed in the midrashic principle of perpetual sanctification. Rabbi Yeshua said, I have heard that the offerings may be brought even in the absence of the temple, since the original sanctification of the temple by Shlomo HaMelech is perpetually effective. Rambam elaborates, Shlomo consecrated the temple courtyard and Jerusalem for all time. Therefore, the offerings may be brought, although the temple does not stand. Why do I maintain that the sanctification of the temple in Jerusalem is eternally effective? Because they became sacred through the visitation of the divine presence, and the divine presence is without end. Ravad there disagrees, deciding in favor of the messianic opinion that rejects Rabbi Yeshua's principle of perpetual sanctification. Ravad maintains that Shlomo HaMelech Shlomo HaMelech's sanctification was limited to the duration of the temple's structure. How then could the offerings have been brought before the construction of the second temple, as described in our verse? The Talmud suggests the possibility that curtains were set up along the boundaries of the temple walls during the construction. The temple walls were brought within the confines of these legally acceptable walls.
Curtains were set up along the boundaries of the temple walls. Okay. So in other words, in order that it should be like a Reshus Yachid, I guess, whatever the point of the curtains was, it should be an enclosed structure for the mizbeach to be able to offer korbanos on the mizbeach. So it wasn't just out there in the middle of the field. Okay. Very good. Yasher koyach, everybody.
Yeah.
And a wonderful day to Mayor. Bye, Mayor. See you.